This video looks at obscuring the features of someone in a video. So this is if you have some sensitive part of your image that shouldn't be shown, then you can blur out that part of the image. And if you want to see the effect, then go to the end of this video. I'm going to start off just by talking about the principle behind how this is done, and it's actually done using a very simple technique called travel mattes. Now, travel mattes are available to you in the composite modes of a particular layer. So the composite modes are down there. You have all of the usual add, subtract, etc. And then down at the bottom you have travel matte alpha, excuse me, and travel matte luma. What these do is they can be applied to a layer and they can be used as a mask. Now what I have here is just a circle generated using Final Cut Pro's shape generators here. And when I bring this down onto the timeline, it's going to be a white circle on a black background. If I bring it down here, you can see that it fills the entire frame. The white circle is in the center. Now if I change the order of my layers so that my video layer, the guy being interviewed, is on top, the circle is directly below it, and if I change the composite mode to travel matte luma, then you'll see a masking effect take place. And what I can do just to illustrate that even further is to put a color beneath the interview layer, and you'll see that what is in fact happening is that the interview layer is being masked by the circle layer, and then you can see the yellow background layer behind it all. Now the reason that I selected composite mode travel matte luma is that luma refers to light or black and white, and that's how this particular one works. So what's happening here is that the white area is going to allow the layer to be shown. The black part of the travel matte is going to make that particular part of the image transparent. So this is being applied to the interviewee here, so that the white part he's shown, the black part he's not shown. Okay, so this is one of the travel mattes that you can use if you want to composite one layer on top of another. So this is luma, and luma refers to light and dark. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to just remove these two layers, and I'm going to show you a different way that you can do the same thing using a different travel matte. Now in order to do this, I'm going to import a PNG file, and a PNG file is just a graphics file that can have transparency in it. When I click choose, I'll bring it in, and what I'll do first of all is I'll just drag it down on top of my interview so you can see exactly what it is. It's a red circle with a transparent area outside it. So instead of having white against black, now I have opaque or visible against transparent or invisible. Now I'm going to do the same thing as I did before. I'm going to slide that graphic layer underneath my my interview layer, and I'm going to change that first of all back to normal, just so that you can see that it's a regular layer now. No composite mode being changed. Underneath it I have my PNG file. So now if I change the top layer again to composite mode, and this time alpha, you'll see the same thing happening. So what's happening here, instead of it looking at the light and dark parts, it's looking at the opaque and the transparent parts. So where the circle is opaque or visible, and that's making the video layer on top of it visible or opaque. Where the graphic file is transparent, it's kind of mapping that transparency onto the video layer above it. Now here is how the effect works where you are blurring a part of the image. If I get my PNG file and I just match up where that is on top of the guy's face, I now have the area identified that I want to blur. Now here is how you go about creating the effect. You get the layer that contains the video of the interviewee in this case, and the first thing I'll need to do is unlink it from its audio so that I can select it on its own. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to copy that layer down underneath the layer that contains the graphic. To do that, I'll hold down Alt, click, drag, and then hold down Shift, and it should be perfectly placed in underneath the two top layers there. So now the effect of the graphic is still actually happening there, but because I have an identical layer at the bottom as I do on the top, then it's being composited onto an identical layer, so you don't notice the composite. Now I can do whatever I want to the top layer. In this case, I'm going to create a blur by going into the Gaussian blur filter, dragging it down onto the top layer, and then loading that up in the viewer, increasing the amount. So now you can see, in a basic sense, the effect of blurring the figure's face. But what I'm in fact doing is just isolating a part of the top layer, using my PNG file as a mask or a travel matte, and then placing that against an identical layer which isn't blurred. And that's how you get the effect of obscuring someone's features. Now what I can do is I can fine-tune that by transforming the PNG layer. If I want to make it smaller, for instance, I can hold down Shift and click and transform on its four edges. Now that might do it there, and another thing that I can do is I can actually blur the edges of my PNG so that I get a softer edge on the effect. So I'll blur the PNG file, up the amount of the radius of the blur, and it should have the effect of softening the edges. So I'll just switch off my bottom layer to see that. Okay, so you can see it becoming softer there. When I switch on the bottom layer again, it blends more into its surroundings. Okay, so that's how to do a simple static mask, and you'll see a problem being that when you actually, I should probably blur that more on the top layer so you can't see his features at all. Now, problem being that when he moves out of the blur. So I'll look at that in the next video, how to deal with that.